everyone. This is Remleiz from 40k Theories, and welcome to this new episode of Adeptus Podcastus. Joining me as always is Tactica Imperialis.
Hello everyone.
And joining us as our guest this week is the return of none other than Wib of Snipe and Wib.
Hello there.
Hello there, General Kenobi.
Hello there.
We're not even 30 seconds in and we've immediately started and generated into puns.
We got to fill the dead air somehow. But yes, anyway, how is everyone doing today?
Tired. It's Friday. It's the end of a school week. So yes, tired.
Yes, it's been a very, very... It's been a week, yes.
It has been a week.
It has been a week.
If it helps, I went to town today and a new shop had opened and they decided that they needed to have some people playing like steel drums outside of it, and I don't think they ever stopped playing.
Were they at least good?
So, it was fine. It was fine. But yeah, and there was a person dressed as a giant penguin walking around, so that was a deeply surreal thing when you turn a corner and then suddenly there'd just be a giant blue penguin just blocking the path, and you're like, oh.
Okay, when you say a giant penguin, was it like a store mascot kind of thing, or was it just some guy in a fursuit?
Now, I'm pretty sure it was a store mascot, but also...
Okay.
I mean, we live in a strange world.
This is true.
It's a strange world, it's a mad world, and speaking of strange and mad, in the news this week, turns out the pre-orders for the Battle Forces failed, didn't it?
Yeah, so, well, yeah, but no, it depends on what we're considering a failure. So, did the new Warhammer website crash? No. By that measure, great success. But the stocks did not last very well. I don't know all the ins and outs, but I do know that particularly the 40k Battle Forces went incredibly quickly. I heard a story the other day about someone who queued up and drew the queue system, which is fine. I understand with release days like this, you want a queue system. Went through that, placed an order for a battle force, went through, verified payment, all that stuff, and literally a few days later got an email saying, oh, that thing you ordered turns out it's actually out of stock.
Jesus.
Now, I can't verify how true that is, but it's like, I wouldn't be so surprised if they took too many orders by accident or too many people ordered at once and it just scrambled the system.
I mean, there is a precedent for that because I know someone. Do you remember when the Sisters of Battle Army box came out in 8th edition? Was it? So I know someone who ordered it, and then about a week later they got an email saying, "Oh, sorry, we haven't got it. We're refunding you instead."
God.
Yeah, so there is a precedent for that kind of thing.
Yeah, but we thought we'd be better by now, but there we are.
Yeah, but considering the state of the new website, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know what you mean. It's completely amazing and totally worked on release, and it didn't end up with situations where it would load a JPEG of a servo skull that once you clicked on it would never leave.
I didn't hear that one. That's awful.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was the placeholder for what is like the 3D view. Was like a little servo skull image, but once you clicked on that, like if you clicked on it because you were wondering what it was, then you couldn't click on any of the other images. You had to reload the page to actually look at any of the other images.
Oh my!
Because it like locked it into that.
God.
I initially looked at the website on mobile, and I made like a post about it, going like, you know, it's just part of the long-standing tradition that all miniature like company websites are all terrible, and like they made a pact with a demon at some point, and this was like the downside. and they you know it was calling you know the Jew was being called, but then I looked at it on desktop and I was like, oh no, wow, this isn't just bad, this is like actively unusable. Like it was so bad on launch, it's quite bad now, but because it's just designed terribly, but like it was astonishingly bad on launch.
Yeah, I mean, we went on there and we talked about it quite a lot during the last episode, and it was it wasn't good. But we've said everything we need to say about that website. I'm not wasting any more airtime banging on about the thing.
Check out the last episode if you want to know more.
Yes.
But anyway, speaking of the website, this is going somewhere, don't worry. As of tomorrow, from the time of recording, you'll be able to pre-order Legions Imperialis.
And
I'm going to try.
And the world
In
kept
theory,
spinning.
at least.
I've got to be honest. As much as I think they've done a really good idea of pulling together Titanicus and Aeronautica and all the models together and adding in the infantry and bringing back Epic in its own way, I think that's a really good idea. I remain unconvinced as to how well it will be received. Like, I don't know what the player base for Titanicus is like, and I don't know what the player base for Aeronautica is like, and I don't know how much those two player bases cross over, because you're asking people to buy this box set when it comes out for Legions, which, fair enough, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. But they're also asking Titanicus and Aeronautica players, hey, your game's kind of dead now. Play this instead. And by the way, I hope you like buying infantry as well to go with your massive god machines and or tiny planes, because that's what they're basically asking people to do. I don't know whether you can actually just play pure Aeronautica and pure Titanicus after this, or whether those rule sets are being effectively discontinued, meaning that the only way you play it is by using the old rules, which look how well that went for fantasy. So I don't know how well it's going to go. I mean, the models look great, and I'm sure the game plays very well, but I don't know how well the existing player base will migrate into it, and how much of a crossover it will be, or how much of it they're looking for new blood to rebuild these games. I don't know.
Well, I mean, we know full well from experience that the wargaming community takes things incredibly well and never pitches a fit about absolutely anything. So I think they're going to take it in stride.
How you can say it with a straight face, I have no idea.
Because I know because Aeronautica is definitely being discontinued. I don't think they've said anything about Titanicus regarding that. I might be wrong there, but I know they did say that, yeah, Aeronautica's going. So if you liked Aeronautica, you get to fuck yourself.
Yeah, because they put all the Xenos aircraft on Last Chance to Buy a while back, didn't they? So.
Oh god, so they're not just discontinuing Aeronautica, they're discontinuing half the model range as well. Oh, fuck me.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting because, like, so I got into like painting a lot of epic stuff recently. So like this kind of came out at the right time for me because I've been sort of getting into an older version, and I'm like, you know what, a new version with a modern GW sort of ethos rules behind it, which I'm a bit more sort of because I'm bad at taking in rules. So the more streamlined modern stuff is usually easier for my brain to consume. So, like, yeah, cool, I can learn that and I might actually get a game with it, whereas if you learn some old system, finding someone to play a game with is basically impossible. So, like, I'm kind of on board with it, but I do totally see what you mean, because, yeah, it is asking a lot, and I know a lot of people are mad about the whole it not being a full return of Epic, although I would point out, do you know how many factions there are in Warhammer 40,000? Like...
21.
There's at least
There's
4.
a lot. Yeah, like it's not like when they first started doing Epic and like there was only a very small amount. Like it was, you know, it was just like, oh, well, we've got the Imperials, we've got Chaos, and that's basically the same stuff anyway for the most part. And we got Orcs and Eldar, we'll throw them in there. Yeah,
and
basically
squats.
And squats, sort of vaguely tied into sort of the Imperial stuff. And it's like, okay, so you've got all that. Nowadays. There are more flavors of Space Marine than there were factions in the original Epic.
Accurate.
So, like, to suddenly bring everything out as like a huge new version of Epic with all of these factions, I can see why they're going the route of doing the Heresy, because that keeps it small. It means they only have to make a relatively small amount of things to have a fully featured like setting. Basically, and maybe they will start to introduce stuff in the future, but like, I don't think it's I understand why. I also understand why people are disappointed. But realistically, I can see why they've done it.
Yeah, I get the logic of why they've done it. I just don't know how well it's going to be taken. That's all.
Well, like a lot of these kind of games, I kind of suspect they'll really hard push it for like a year, and then they'll forget it exists.
That's
that's probably Given what's happened with Titanicus, I can see it.
But as someone that frequently paints miniatures that are about as old as I am, I couldn't care less. I'll get the models when they come out because I like them. I'll paint them. Oh, whatever. Nothing stops you from playing discontinued games, you know.
Absolutely.
And speaking of models you want to paint, I assume you're getting the Christmas Red Gobbo.
No.
No?
No.
Not Rebel Grot?
No, okay, like, because I got the first Christmas Red Gobbo, and I've got the original Red Gobbo model. So for people that don't know, I've got a big Grot Rebellion army. So you would think I'd get every Red Gobbo, but I don't know. I'm kind of a little bit tired of reconstituting the character into
Santa.
the Santa thing. I thought it was a novelty to begin with, and now I'm just like,
Yeah, I can see that.
It's a much less interesting version of the character than the original one. So yeah. Although I do have my weird hot take about the Red Gobbo, if you want to hear it.
Go on.
Which is, I guess it's less of a hot take, it's just a weird observation. The Red Gobbo has fingernails, and he's consistently presented like this, even in art. He doesn't have claws, and most of the time 40k grots are given claws, whereas it's fantasy goblins that these days are usually presented with fingernails. And I just think that's really weird.
Huh.
Yeah, that is a little odd.
Maybe it's because he's the Red Gobbo rather than the Red Grot.
But he is explicitly he exists within the 40k universe, so...
It's also worth noting that Gobbos don't exist. They're called grots in AOS 2 now.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just I noticed, because I noticed it when I was painting.
Maybe it's coming over from Blood Bowl, because like in Blood Bowl, we know Blood Bowl is connected to 40k in some way, because there was that story where, a gene stealer ended up in a Blood Bowl pitch. So, and and goblins are in Blood Bowl still. So maybe
I think treating Blood Bowl like it has a coherent canon might be a little bit of a mistake.
Hey, I take anything that Jim and Bob says as canon. Because those two are great. Jim and Bob are legends.
This is true. But yeah, no, I just found it weird because when I was painting the new Red Gobbo, well, the first new Red Gobbo, I noticed that he didn't have claws, because obviously I've painted so many grots over the years, and they've all got claws. And so I noticed it, and I was like, oh, that's weird, because the only other goblins I'd painted that were like that were the Gloomspite Gits, the only other ones I painted that were like that. They're even like the hands are sort of a little bit more, I don't know, human-esque almost, and a little bit more spindly than the grots we usually presented. Some of it can just be chalked up to like differences in design sensibilities as they've moved on as a company and like how they make the miniatures. And I think that's what the hand thing is related to. But the claw thing is just weird. I don't really understand it.
Especially just manicures.
Yeah, it doesn't matter at all. It's a complete non-issue, but it's just something I noticed, and I've made a career out of talking about stupid things I've noticed. So,
how dare the Red Gobbo have fingernails instead of claws?
Yeah, ooh, his original model had it. Bring back clawed Gobbo.
Speaking of claws, though, remember last episode when we talked about the Flesh Eater Courts teaser trailer?
We did.
The new Gore Warden guy with the keys came out literally the day after.
Yes, it did. And there's actually been 2 models that have been revealed for the Flesh Eater Course, and we know that there will be more, because in between this episode being recorded and the next episode going out, the World Championships of Warhammer are ongoing, and there's a preview there. I cannot remember when it is, but it is sometime. Here we go. It's literally 3 o'clock in the morning at the time of recording.
Yeah, I ain't staying up for that.
It's going to be at 3 in the morning, the evening after we record this episode. So we can't watch that. You Americans might have watched it at 10 o'clock Eastern, so you stand half a chance of being awake. So yes. So the Flesh Eater Courts have got 2 models so far, and we are 80-90% they are getting more from what I have read. The first is the one Rem is referring to, the Abhorrent Gore Warden. The sort of border guardian type guy for the Flesh Eater Courts who roam the boundaries.
Wards the gore, rather. That joke would have landed better if I'd have said the words correctly. Sorry, I interrupted you.
It's fine. So they hold keys in their hands, the metaphorical keys to the kingdom, because they're the ones who guard the gates, etc. Not that there are gates. And there is also a character known as the Summer King, who we do not know much about yet. As far as I'm aware, who will probably be in this preview, but we don't know much about them yet. Either way, it's a very good model. Like, for Flesh Eater Courts, like a race of feral ghoul type vampires, being able to have their characters be explicitly vampiric is never a bad idea. The Vargheist models are excellent, and this is the kind of hero that you might pair with them, because up to now, the only flying heroes the ghouls had were the ones on Terrorgeist, as far as I can recall, because I don't think the Art Regent could fly. So this is a good hero to sort of go along with your Vargheists as well, considering that they are winged. So very good model. Don't know if anyone else has anything to say on the model in particular.
I think it's really nice. I think it also serves like a really good basis for, like, if you wanted to make a kit bash for a 40k vampire, like the Vampire Xenos race, I think it would make a really good base for that.
I think you'd be right there. The other miniature... Sorry, I didn't ask if you had anything to say, Wib. That was rude of me.
No. I agree. Yes, it's a cool looking model, and yeah, you're not wrong about about it being a good base for the vampire one. Because the image of one from the old Rogue Trader book is not a million miles away from it. So yeah.
Now the other character is far more crazy. So it is Grand Justice Gourmain, which is surely a pun on gourmet, but here we go.
I love this thing.
So yes, this is a High Court judge crossed with a feral ghoul with a judge's wig made of what can only be described as intestines.
Gorda.
Fuck you.
I saw it, and as soon as I saw it, I went, even for Warhammer, this goes particularly hard, and like, God bless it. It
reminds me of like a Cannibal Corpse album.
Yeah, it is so over the top that like, yeah, just amazing, no notes. Just, yeah, carry on doing what you're doing.
So yes, Gourmain is the chief magistrate of the Summer King, the Sumeros Summer King to be exact, the Lord of Masks. So yes, the Gore Warden is all about protecting the borders, keeping trespassers at bay. Gourmain is all about upholding the spirit of civility, reason and decency with even-handed judgments. Make that make fucking sense. So yes, it's definitely a very unique model. It's very Warhammer, and I am very much happy about it. And it does say that the date of the Great Feast is the day of the preview. So we do know there will be more at this preview for Age of Sigmar, which is going to be Flesh Eater Courts. So I really hope they just give them some goddamn units. I said this last time. They actually haven't been given any units in Age of Sigmar. All their models are old Vampire Counts miniatures carried over. They haven't got anything unique in terms of units. Just heroes. Sorry.
That's all right. In other news, there was a new rumor engine, and I can only imagine it's someone carrying what looks like some kind of triple grenade? Like a melter bomb kind of thing?
I would guess it's a melter bomb type thing, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an interesting thing. Very much 40k. And yeah, we'll see what that is. We'll see if it's at the preview or not. Yes, miniatures-wise... Oh, sorry.
No, carry on. Sorry.
I was saying miniatures-wise, there's actually only one more. Okay, there's a tank for Legions Imperialis for the Solar Auxilia, but the main actual, or the miniature this month, this cycle, I should say, is the Stormseer Consul, the White Scars unique librarian, which is
Oh, yeah.
quite a half-decent mini, if I do say so. I don't think it's probably the best thing GW have ever come up with, but if you wanted to represent a Rune Priest in a different way, or just, do a Stormseer, I think it's a really good baseline for a slightly different style of Space Marine librarian.
Yeah, one thing I actually kind of like about it, because with the Horus Heresy stuff, the newer stuff especially, I feel like sometimes they go kind of so hard on emulating the John Blanche aesthetic that they sometimes end up looking like knockoff Space Marines almost, or at least a little off model, shall we say.
Yeah.
And this one looks a bit more like normal. So, like, if that kind of off-modelness bothered you, then this would also be a good, like,
A bit more Jez Goodwin.
Yeah, a bit more like this one. Like, so I think some of the Horus Heresy stuff feels like it would look weird if you used it as an equivalent in mainline 40k. Some of them would look a little odd. Whereas this one, this could just be a regular 40k or a Horus Heresy model. Fine, either way.
Yeah, I think you're right there. Sorry, Rem, you were saying something. Go on.
Yeah. Remember a while back when there was that teaser from Weta Workshop?
It wasn't that long ago.
Workshop. Yeah. It was long ago enough. It was a few episodes back. They revealed the actual thing, and it's a statue of Captain Titus.
Lieutenant Titus.
Or Lieutenant Titus.
Yeah.
Whatever. It's Titus. A statue of Titus.
Yep. And it's a very, very, very impressive
and
piece
very,
of work.
Very expensive.
Yeah, what was it?
$1,200. And that's not including the additional head or weapon option, apparently. That's an additional $200.
Ah, well, if you're already spending that much, what's a few £100 more,
So, yes. Well, obviously, exchange rates move, but that's asking for somewhere in the region of 1,000 Great British pounds for one model. Like, I know Warhammer's expensive, but what the fuck?
Yeah, and also, if you're someone trying to buy this from Australia or New Zealand, you're probably looking upwards of about 3,000.
Absolutely.
And that's not even taking into account shipping. Something that heavy, because apparently it's 2 feet tall.
It's 1:6 scale, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a big lad. That sometimes things come out and like I don't even feel a slight pang of like, oh, that'd be cool to own, because I'm just like, no, where would I even put that? Like, even if I had a bigger place, like that's just a huge chunk of your like living room taken up. I'm like, yeah, no, it's fine.
Just keep it in the corner. It's fine.
Oh, I just want to make one note, because I just noticed this on the that Stormseer console. He's got trigger discipline. I'm just so used to Warhammer miniatures not having that. He's not got his finger on the trigger of his bolt pistol. He's actually got it like held to the side of it. I'm just so used to them not doing that. I was like, oh, that's really neat. Just a little touch. Because if you're not pointing it at someone, you don't want your finger on the trigger. That's a good way to shoot someone in the leg. One of your friends in the leg.
Or yourself.
Yes.
I'm not too big a fan of the Mark 6 helmet on it, though, with like the mono visor eyepiece.
I actually really love that, I'll be honest. I really dig that helmet.
It looks too much like a Transformer. It looks too much like a Viacon.
Yeah, I will be honest. It does. It does look like a Prime Viacon, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
But it's like... It's not quite regular Warhammer. It's got that slightly off-modelness that a lot of the Horus Heresy stuff can have, but I don't know, that one really works for me.
Fair enough.
Especially for a librarian. Obviously, I know it's based on some of the generic White Scars ones you can get, but
yeah.
But I still think that works really well, personally.
Fair enough. What else do we have in the news?
More toys.
Lord of the Rings related stuff.
So if we're talking about big miniatures from other people, Joy Toy made a Rogel Dawn.
His hair is so big.
He looks so much like Gordon Ramsay, it's unreal.
I was thinking more David Lynch, honestly.
Let us know in the comments who you think the Joy Toy Rogel Dawn looks more like. But they've certainly made it adaptable. Like, you've got the base miniature with a rotatable head, 6 different hands, gun, chainsword, and backpack, which are all separate pieces. So they're definitely giving you plenty of options of what you want to do with him.
It's a good thing that the hands are removable, eh?
Oh, that's not funny. That's not fair. That's so rude.
It's so you can disperse the spare hands amongst your Joy Toy Imperial fists. It's fine. It's accessories for other characters. It's fine.
I don't even know if they're on the same scale, this Primarch miniature versus the regular Marines. I don't know if they've actually kept true to how the Primarchs are that much bigger than the Marines, because I've not seen them all next to each other.
Oh, come on. It's not like Games Workshop in fictional models is ever consistent about that anyway.
I mean, yeah, you're right. This is true.
It's not like you can do it canonically wrong, because whatever height you make them, you can find a book somewhere that backs you up.
Pretty much.
I'm just reminded of the whole scale and consistency with the you'll appreciate this comparison with the Beast Machine toy line.
Oh yeah.
Like, Silverbolt, the tallest character in the show, has the smallest toy. Nightscream, the smallest character, has the biggest toy. What the hell?
You want that giant Cheetor.
Oh, God. Forgot about that. Anyway. I wonder which Primarch they'll probably focus on next, because I think this is all going to be for the Horus Heresy subline, isn't it? So,
yeah.
So, I wonder who they'll probably do next. Do you reckon they'll probably do, like, a traitor Primarch? Like, do you reckon they'll do Horus? Because that'd be cool.
I think they should, to be honest.
It'd be weird if they didn't, considering his name's on the tin and all that.
They were still waiting on his Horus Heresy Primarch book, though.
I can kind of see, like, why they would hold off, because, like, it's kind of one of the big ones. So, you know, they want to
True, but
kind
it's
of
also
get
the
it
last
right.
one. So.
It would also be a good way, because I feel you could do some real fun narrative, like, surprises in that by having a book that you can release, like, right near the end that recontextualizes a lot of things you've had along the way.
Yeah, but given how
but that'd be
the
really
Primarch
cool.
series has been as a whole, you know, I mean, like, taking the Sanguinius book, for example, like, it was a good Horus Heresy book, but as a Sanguinius novel, it was absolute dog shit, because he was only in it for, like, a quarter of the fucking book.
I'm just saying that the possibility is there for them to do something actually genuinely, like, interesting and, like, narratively, like, satisfying and shocking. If they they could do things with it. Not that they will,
No.
but they could. And I'm trying to be more hopeful about things.
Yeah, lots of ifs, but what's that saying, like, you know, if a frog could fly, it wouldn't bump its ass when it lands, or something? I don't know.
Never heard that one.
Anyway. It's something that I probably butchered the saying. But yeah. And also, apparently there's some new content in Darktide now, allegedly. I don't keep up with Darktide, so...
No.
It's called The Traitor's Curse, or something.
Yeah,
I've heard there's a new thing, but I've not got round to playing it. I never did play as much of Darktide as I wanted to. I think it was one of those ones where I got to it kind of late, and so every time I tried to play it, it was sort of there was so much to take in, and I really needed to get a group together to get my bearings, and I never got that, so I always felt a little out of my depth, and so I never played it as much as I wanted to.
Fair enough. But also, what came out literally today is also the Realms of Ruin video game.
Yeah, I saw something, and I didn't actually really do anything to do with it, about someone getting someone reviewed it and said it's not, like, got any of the grit and Warhammer, and people on Twitter, I say Twitter, and as much as that's a verified great source of information, not like, you know, person who has absolutely no idea is just bashing it because it's AOS. Again, I don't know how true that is, because I've not seen anything to do with it, but
I played the fifth. I got a little involved in it and then instantly regretted it.
Oh.
Yeah, I'll just say that, it's been 8 years. Get over it. AOS has been out for 8 years now. Get over it.
Yep, exactly. Get over it.
Exactly. What else is there? 'Cause I don't think there's too much else, is there?
No, to be totally honest. The Old World Almanac has been giving us rules. Oh, and there's new combat patrols.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say, they revealed that new Catachan novel, didn't they?
Yes, so actually we missed a couple of things. So yes, there's a new book. There's new combat patrols for Admech and Necrons, which do not contain any new miniatures. Nudge, nudge. But there we go. So yes, if you are an Admech or a Necrons player, please be aware that Admech have been given the Fat Tech Priest, Manipulus, that's the one. You've got Skitari, Vanguard, 3 of the bloody... Why can I not remember that?
Cerberus or something.
The Rust... Oh, here we go. The Sterilizers and the Sulphur Hounds. There we go. Sorry. So, yes, the Cavalry and the Winged guys, 10 basic Skitari, and a Tech Priest Manipulus, because obviously most of those have got optional builds available to them. The Necrons have got a Overlord, Warriors, Cannot Take Doomstalker, Scorpec Destroyers, and a couple of Scarab bases, which, to be fair, is a pretty good place to start with a Necron army. I can't really argue.
Aren't those the models from the Indomitus box?
Those units are all in the Indomitus box.
I know that Overlord's from the Indomitus box.
So all of those models would have been available in Indomitus, but most of them have been separate kits since. I don't know if the Overlord has. Because it's the one with the Tachyon arrow, I think.
I think so, yeah.
But yes, they're just there, which cool.
They are things. What you can buy if you want.
I do love the Fat Tech Priest, though. He reminds me of Dr. Robotnik.
Oh, of course.
I do enjoy the sort of creative verve that a lot of the Mechanicus models have. Just kind of screwing around and seeing like kind of fun ways of putting things together.
And as I mentioned earlier, we got a new Catachan novel coming out called Death Welder, which is a squad of Catachans versus Nids. So that should be fun.
Agreed.
Although I wonder if the Black Library Coming Soon page has been updated. It probably hasn't, because... no, it's still showing previews for coming in August.
Rad. I mean, does it mean next August? Or?
That's so poor. That's so poor.
It's like 3 fucking months, guys. Come on.
Look,
God.
to be fair, whoever deals with like the web stuff at Games Workshop has been busy presumably getting yelled at over the new Games Workshop website, because I can almost guarantee that was put out like before the people behind it wanted it to go out. So they've spent the last several months being yelled at. So that some stuff's going to fall by the wayside.
Oh, also there's some 40k DLC for a scenario to reenact the final battle of the first Space Marine game.
Or the battle on the rooftop against all the chaos.
Yeah.
Oh. That's a nice idea.
Yeah, though apparently, I don't know if this is true because I haven't actually checked the codex, but apparently Captain Titus's model, apparently that's not actually tabletop legal because it uses an equipment loadout that you can't actually give a Primaris Lieutenant.
Are you joking?
I don't know if this is true, but this is what some people on my Discord server told me, so yeah, apparently.
Well, that's just a joke.
The main thing apparently is because he's got a chainsaw, and apparently lieutenants can't actually take chainsaws or something.
Oh my god, really?
Yeah, I don't think they can, no.
So yeah, that's an illegal loadout. Well done, Games Workshop.
You know, maybe what is when they keep doing things like this? Like, didn't they do a thing with one of the Eldar codexes where they put it out and the character on the front had an illegal weapon loadout, and so they later adjusted
the Autarch.
it.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like what is like my conspiracy theory here is that Games Workshop is sick of us all being so like following everything to the letter all the time and being terrified to house rule things like people do with D&D or whatever. And so what they do is they keep doing this so that it forces us to try and house rule stuff, and we never take the bait.
But why do you think everyone's so shit scared of house ruling? Because
it's actually a weird thing. This has been here for decades. Like, there's an article that Gav Thorpe wrote in the Citadel Journal talking about this. How Warhammer players are unique in that, unlike every other RPG, like tabletop game, including other Games Workshop made tabletop games, they never house rule anything. Whereas all of the game, like, people will do that with, they did it with Battlefleet Gothic and Necromunda and Mordheim. They do it with everything else, like, just fine, but they'd never do it with Warhammer. And this is just a thing with Warhammer players for some reason. And it always has been, pretty much, outside of the very early days.
I mean, I'm trying to think now, when we were at Warhammer Club, did we have any particular house rules? Like, if we did, they were usually admin-based house rules around, I don't know. I'm sure we did little things that weren't by the book, but that we just did. But it won't have been like, oh yeah, the rules say that we should do this, but we're going to do this instead because it's better, or the rules don't accommodate this. Like, the only time we had house rules were house rulings on this is what we think the rules mean. We're going to argue this once, and then we're just going to say this is how it resolves every single time going forward. And that's
the closest thing is that I don't think I ever played a game of Ninth using its full terrain rules, because every single person I played with thought they were terrible, so they would just use the most basic version of it all the time.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, disconnected. No, okay.
Yeah, no.
So there's a pause. I keep thinking I disconnected because that keeps happening to me.
I think we were all waiting for another person.
Yes,
and it just got a lig.
So yes, the last bit of news is about Old World, because they actually showed us how movement and stuff actually works now. So it's actually a bit more complex than it used to be. So, for example, you know how at the end, well, if you played 8th edition fantasy, you may be aware of the Horde as a different formation you could have. So what they've done now is they've got different ways of having units, like marching speed versus combat speed, almost. Which is nothing to do with like how the 40k movement system works, but for vehicles in the day. So the idea is you want combat order is where you are wider than you are deep. So you want the idea that, you know, you've got a better advantage in combat because you've got more ranks, the same stuff as fantasy used to have. But you are able to give up your rank bonus and the ability to charge by going into a marching column, which allows you to move at, I quote, triple speed. So I'm guessing when you march, instead of marching at double move, which is what a normal march move is, it's actually a triple move, but you're not allowed to charge, nor do I expect would you be allowed to reform, which should force you then to gamble of, I'm going to go super fast, but I've got no rank bonus, so if I get charged by any half-decent unit, I am screwed. So it's an interesting movement mechanic that they're playing with.
It seems like a good place to do some more granular rules, because the kind of people who the Old World is designed to appeal to are, you know, it's experienced wargamers who you know, sometimes these are people that do kind of look down on like mainline like Age of Sigmar and 40k for being a little bit basic. So
well, to give it credit, I can teach 40k, because we've been doing this at Warhammer Club, that I can teach somebody how to play 40k in the space of 3 games.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
That's not me. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I like simple games because I'm an idiot. So simple games are good for me. That's why I like 40k. But I know some people do over time sort of tire a little bit of the simplicity of certain aspects of the combat, and they kind of crave a more of a granular experience. So yeah, I think the demographics of those people who are wanting to get into the old world from the nostalgia of playing old fantasy, that probably lines up. It reminds me a little of the Warhammer historical stuff that was also like, what if Warhammer, but certain aspects of it are a little bit more in depth.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, you can see that as well looking at the shooting phase by the fact that the old ballistic skill system is back.
Hooray!
Ballistic skill 1 to 5 being hitting on 6s through 2s, and BS 6 of higher being 2s, but if you miss, you get to roll again on a 6. So they actually have not modified that at all. They've also brought back -1 to hit on the move, -1 to hit at long range, -1 to hit when you're being charged, etc. So it's properly, and holy, I actually hadn't read this article until literally just now, because I read the movement one, but I didn't actually read the bloody shooting one. The old wound charts are back.
Wow.
There is now a position in which you can not be able to wound people again. I know this is actually probably a bad thing, but actually you have positions where you cannot wound people anymore if your strength is not high enough. And it's not double strength wounds on 2s anymore. Oh no, sirree, it's 2 points higher, just like it was in the old days.
You know what's going to be really interesting is watching anyone who is coming into this new. Like, for someone who...
some people are going to shit themselves.
Because a lot of these mechanics, like the mechanics of Warhammer, because, as a minor advert, currently we're working on a video about Warhammer 1st edition from 1983. It's our big end-of-year video. And so many of the mechanics, like this to wound chart, like these type of things, even though they got modified over time. For a start, toughness used to be a letter rather than a number because it was 1983 and they were just doing weird stuff. But it was the same basic stuff, and it will be interesting because so many of the mechanics that come from that original version of the game were pretty much unchanged until until Age of Sigmar and 40k 8th edition. So many things disappeared then that were there from the beginning, and we were sort of just used to them the whole time. And I'm sort of intrigued to see if, with people having a bit of a break from using these, how they will be perceived to new eyes, like old design sensibilities, but in the modern day, without that sort of inertia from them just always being like that. I'll be intrigued to see if people like them or if they do feel archaic. I will be intrigued because I'm used. This is stuff that I learned to play using, so it's like, this makes sense. But I can sort of acknowledge that the modern stuff is a lot more streamlined and kind of it means there's less circumstances where I've got the things I've got left physically can't hurt you. Well, I guess I give up.
Yeah, and just take for example the Screaming Skull Catapult. So the Screaming Skull Catapult has 12 to 60 inch range, so it's got minimum range. It's got 2 strength values, 2 AP values, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 special rules. On one gun. Even the basic ass longbow has 2 special rules. Okay. One of which because it has armor bane, so -1 to armor saves, and volley fire, which lets you fire it in more than one rank unless you're stood on a hill. So, it's just basic guns, what you consider like your las gun or your bolt gun equivalent, has still got multiple rules attached to it. And your complex guns, like think about like the most complicated gun you can think of. It's probably something like a volcano cannon or something, which has got like heavy and melter and blast. Like there's got 3 keywords attached to it. This thing's got fucking 7. one of which is unique to it. And it also needs a notes special rule underneath saying it works like a stone thrower using the bombardment special rule, a 3-inch blast template, yes, pie plates are back, and the stone thrower misfire table. So not only do you need to actually know what 2 different strength values actually mean in terms of which one do you use, you need to know 7 different special rules and refer to a separate fucking mechanic, which is stone throwers, just to fire this fucking gun. And I'm just like I can read that and go, bombardment, okay, I roughly have the idea that that's like over the top. Cumbersome, yeah, that's pretty self-explanatory. Flaming attacks, I know what that does. Magical attacks, I know what that does. Move or shoot, self-explanatory. Multiple wounds, but only to the model under the pie plate. Just Jesus fucking Christ. I'm not complaining, I love this stuff, but like, whoa. And also, they brought Vortex spells back. So the Vortex of Chaos spell is a thing which lets you summon a magical vortex that flies around the board. We're doing D6 plus 1 strength 3 hits to any unit it moves over. It's just, and it's interesting that you said about like how will the new players react to this older archaic mechanic system that's so complicated that you need a PhD to understand it perfectly. But for me, who actually, grew up with 5th edition 40k, which was already a streamlined edition, let's be fair.
Yeah, well.
I grew up on streamlined 5th edition 40k, and then we don't talk about 6th. And then I went to fantasy and really enjoyed fantasy, but never really dug deep into the mechanics. I'm sat here literally grinning like a schoolgirl and just like, this is cool as fuck. I want this back.
No, it's like as I say, no, like it does really illustrate the kind of demographic they're going for, because this is the stuff that has been stripped out of the mainline games, and for good reason, frankly. Like it was stuff that, like, it sometimes does slow games down, but once you are into that vibe, if you're into that, then it's really good. It gives you that crunchiness that you want. So it's like, I think it's like I'm sort of the position of like, whilst this stuff, I personally prefer kind of really simple streamlined games to a point. I'm looking at you, combi weapons in 10th ed.
Fuck them.
But I generally prefer a more streamlined experience, but also, it's cool if there are other games that aren't just the same game again, but with a different coat of paint. They do offer a different experience, and that's just cool, because it means that people that want to play a more streamlined, easy to get hold of experience can play 40k or Age of Sigmar or what have you.
Yeah,
and they can do that, and that obviously.
Same.
Yeah, and that scales up to to bigger games that get more complex, or down to smaller games that are much less complex. But then you can have other games like Old World that are sort of a bit more in the old school way of doing things, and allow people to still have that. I don't know. It just seems like it seems like one of those instances where everyone gets to win. So Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. As someone who plays 40k on the pretty regular and hasn't played AOS in a while, I know I can pick AOS up, and as long as I just check 3 or 4 lines of rules, I can play it exactly like I just played my game of 40k. But
that's because they're basically the same game these days.
That's because AOS was a testing bed the 40k just copied. But anyway, beside the point. Anyway, but like, it's just the fact that, yes, I know Heresy exists, and I know Heresy's got that 7th ed crunch to it. Not that I've played it because I haven't had the chance, but I feel like that scratched the itch for a lot of 40k old guard players of like, hey, if you're willing to stomach only playing Space Marines for the rest of your life, you can play 7th again. I get the feeling that that's really scratched that itch. And to older hands who had their hands on fantasy and maybe either transitioned into Sigmar or didn't and ditched it, whichever, just having that crunchy meat and potatoes back. You're not just getting served like a dine and dash, quick, bite-sized rulebook. Oh no, this is a full 4-course roast dinner, baby. And it's so crunchy, and you want to get into it and just, I don't know why I'm making so many food puns, just digest it.
Are you hungry?
Yeah, I must be.
There we go.
Just digest what's going on and actually play this game. And yeah, your first game's going to take a month. So what? Your first game takes a month, but your second game takes a week, your third game takes a day, and before you know it, you're playing it nearly as quickly as you played 40k, as long as you pay attention. So
it's
yes.
It's a cool thing. It's definitely going to scratch an itch for a lot of people that have probably not had that specific itch scratched in a while. Again, everyone gets to win. It's cool.
Absolutely. I'm very much looking forward to if they can get the rulebook out relatively cheaply for Old World, like the rules themselves, like they do what they do with 40k and Heresy. If that's the one thing I think where they need to take a list from 40k and AOS's book is get the rules out free and fast. Because at the end of the day, the thing that's going to hold back people from returning to the hobby, if they're fantasy hobbyists, is the price point. They don't want to buy butt tons of new miniatures, and they don't want to spend a butt ton on new books. So, if you want to entice the fantasy crowd back in, give them their rules for free, even if it's an index or whatever we're going to call them, like an index and a basic rule book out for free that everyone can play. I guarantee someone in the old WhatsApp group will go, hey, did you know Fantasy's back with new rules? You want to try it? And they say, wait, don't we have to pay like 80 quid to get all our books? No, it's all for free. I bet that will get one or two gaming groups or people in those gaming groups back playing just because they don't have to actually invest again. And if they hate it, they still think, fuck this, I'm out, then fine. Flog your army or set it on fire if you're an idiot. Do whatever. But you get it's that bite back in, because that for me is the biggest issue, is that I've now got to watch my budgets and I've got different projects and different hobbies and I've not got a lot of time. I don't want to just throw down 60 to 80 quid getting books for a game I might play twice because I haven't got the time. If you put it out for free, I can just get my Daughters of Cain, get my Cities of Sigmar, put them together, play Dark Elves again, get someone who plays Soulblight Graveyard Lords and throw them out as vampire counts, boom, everybody wins.
Yeah. Like, I think that's the other thing. It will be, like, if it's just doing the old, you're just dealing with the old factions, plenty of if you've got an Age of Sigmar army, even for one of the more, like, fancy new ones that were invented for it, you can just proxy stuff pretty easily. Like,
yep. Lumineth for High Elves being the prominent example.
Yeah, you can just do that stuff. And so... I don't know, it's kind of cool when you can have one army that you can play in multiple games. That's just cool.
Hi, demons.
Yes. Well, they're now getting silly of how many different games you can technically play with them in. So,
yep, 4. Theoretically 4.
You can't complain at. That's getting into the sort of realm of when you were buying miniatures in the 80s, and it's like, you can use it for D&D or RuneQuest or Warhammer or
Doctor Who.
Yeah. Or you can use it in Thane Tostig, the game where all of the characters have the dicks out.
The thing is, I don't have any clue if you're being serious or if that's just a joke.
Oh, yeah, Thane Tostig is a really old, skirmish war game. I don't know that much about it, but the models are really weird and lumpy, and a large portion of them are naked, and they do have little dingles hanging out.
But can you use demons in Oi, That's My Leg?
I don't believe that has any actual miniatures attached to it, so maybe not. But if it does have a counter on it, then you could represent the counter with a demon. Theoretically, you can also use demons in Monopoly by that ruling, but I feel then we're getting into a kind of Tommy Westfall thing where you're using very tenuous things to connect everything, and it gets silly. So we'll leave it at 4.
Monopoly, you can make a link. But anyway, we're going a bit too far in the direction we don't want to go. But anyway,
yeah, that was a very roundabout way of saying I want to play fantasy again. What the fuck is wrong with me? That's a very long roundabout way of saying it.
Yeah. And speaking of the preview, just going back to that very briefly, there was a supposed leak. It might be true by the time this video comes out, but as the time of recording, we're going to take it with a pinch of salt. And that is a leak supposedly revealing brand new Deathwing Knights.
Didn't they do Deathwing Knights like 2 editions ago? Like I have a memory of Deathwing Knights being redone for Dark Angels, and it was not that long ago. It was like 7th when they redid Deathwing Terminators.
Yeah, but now Primaris will get Terminators now, so...
Okay, place
Yeah,
bets
no.
now. Is it an upgrade kit? Or actually, it's not an upgrade kit. Looking at the kit's too detailed, but I would love if it was just a fucking upgrade kit. That would be so funny.
But if they are legit, then they look quite nice. If they're fake, then it's a very good fake.
They are certainly some Deathwing Terminators.
Of all the Deathwing Terminators, they are the Deathwing Terminators of all time.
They are definitely one of them.
Yes, and we feel we can comment on this because we're sort of working under the expectation that this will be in the preview, so you'll know about this. So this is the way of going, hey, why didn't you talk about the Deathwing Knights? They were leaked before the show. It's like, we did, but if they're not there, then sorry for accidentally talking about leaks, which we don't like to do. But given the fact we're expecting them to be at the preview, I think this is one we're willing to let slide. And to be honest, given the fact that Lion's back, Dark Angels have had fuck all since. So I think it makes sense to bulk Dark Angels up with some new toys now that Lion's back.
Not to mention, there is some precedence to the idea that this might be legit, considering that one of the countdown days did feature the Dark Angels logo. So
just a little.
So it does seem like this could actually be legit. So
yeah, I agree. Okay, place bets now. They've done Azrael. Who are they promising next? Is it going to be Ezekiel or Asmodai?
Asmodai, because of the memes. Literally just because of the memes, it'll be Asmodai.
I'm seeing the change in the corner of that preview image, which makes me do agree with you.
Also, I don't know, I have a soft spot for him because I had the model back in 3rd edition, and just being like, oh, so here's this character. Oh, what weapons does he have? Oh, he just wields multiple power weapons, different ones, just because he just wants to yell at people. Cool, okay.
Yep, about right.
I'm just saying, give us a new model for Brother Bethel, you bastards. He hasn't had a model since 2nd edition.
Why did I not even think of Belial or Samael over there? God, that tells me how much I care about Dangles. Jesus.
And then they'll just, surprise us out of nowhere, and hey, here's a brand new model for Sergeant and the Man.
Oh, I'd love that. I'd love that.
It's like, didn't he get blown up? Yes, but he got better.
I mean, they literally have a guy in their army called fucking Lazarus, so yeah, why not?
Yeah.
It's the Lazarus Pits, Bruce. Facing off against a wordbearer named Ra's al Ghul. Anyway.
Got it, thank you.
Is it Rash or Raish? I heard it pronounced different ways.
I've heard Raish is the common way I've heard it pronounced.
I think that's generally considered to be the standard one these days.
Right, okay. Because I remember when I first heard it, it was Rash.
Oh, did you see the new Storm of Iron cover, by the way, Ram?
I did, yeah. Then this is like at least the 4th time this has come out. We counted, didn't we? It was like 6 times.
It is. It's just I didn't know if you'd seen the cover because it looks.
I did.
Quite cool.
Yeah, it looks nice.
Agreed.
It does. I agree. Yes.
But I didn't realise they'd done it.
Stop re-releasing Storm of Iron. We don't need any more bloody comics. We got enough of them. We're inundated with Storms of Iron.
Just make a new Honsu novel, you cowards.
It's not a storm, it's a fucking torrent.
Look, we know from that old that Jim Burns Space Marine cover art that they reused about 15 times, that when Games Workshop have got something and they know it works, they're going to keep reusing it over and over again until you're absolutely sick of it.
Yeah. Oh dear. Anyway, Neve, you said last episode you read through, was it King of the Spoil?
King of the Spoil, yes I did. The Warhammer crime novel.
Oh. Yes. So consider this your spoiler warning, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I think it's relatively new enough that we can put a spoiler on it. This book was good. I'll start there. This book was good. So I've given the people who don't want spoilers a bit more time to dip away because I'm just giving my general thought. The book was good. So, here's the premise. The Spoil is a slum where 3 districts of Varangantua converge. All of them laid clay to it at some point and all of them abandoned it. So none of them want anything to do with it. And it was an anarchic mess raiding into these districts nearby. And then along comes a guy whose name has gone out of my bloody head, who unites the Spoil under his gang, the Hard Roll, and he becomes king of the Spoil. This all happened 20 odd years ago. the book opens with him being murdered.
Oh.
So yes,
Well,
the King of the Spoil is dead. What
Long
now?
live the King of the Spoil.
Oh, well, what happens now? So, the story follows two major perspectives with a couple of jumps to characters who are tangential to these characters, when they're in the same room. It follows a hive ganger, who is, just knocking about. A mum works in the manufactorum and is dying very quickly as a result. Their pay is literally IHO sticks and scrap food. Like, that's all the spoil gets from its endless little bits of trade and raiding with the various elements nearby. And she wants a better life, because of course you do. And she wants out, but she can't get out because the spoil doesn't have any way out. The other perspective is with an info broker, a data slicer type woman who works for a syndicate that essentially is the outer muscle of the hard roll. So the hard roll run the spoil, but the true power outside that helps supply them and helps them to feed their people, etc., comes from this outside group. And they brokered a deal with the King of the Spoil. And she is just some random info broker who has met the King of the Spoil once, and is suffering quite badly with a drug problem because, it's Baron Gantra, it's 40k. So there are two protagonists, as it were. You've got the ganger and her friends, one of whom eventually ends up being her girlfriend for 5 minutes, and one who is this info broker and her bodyguard who used to be an enforcer, and he's built like a brick shit house with a gun to match. So the info broker's storyline all revolves around whodunit, because this assassination came out of nowhere. There's no comms, no one saw it coming, which is very odd given the amount of data flying around and the amount of bribery and corruption knocking about. It comes from nowhere and no one knows why. So her job is to try and work out what the fuck's gone on, because the syndicate are very pissed that they didn't find out first because of the fact that no one knew about it, and she missed it, everybody missed it. This takes her hunting down a tech priest, a heretic priest, who basically abandoned the Mechanicus for the spoil, if you like, and has built a lot of stuff in the spoil and keeps the Manufactura going because no one else will, which is an interesting journey, going across rivers into other gangs' territory, running across proper enforcers, and all of these other things, as well as just generally trying not to die in the chaos that unfolds. Meanwhile, the ganger storyline picks up with, the king is dead, what now? As basically the violence being contained by the hard roll, as they are now kind of disintegrating without their king, leads to lots of petty violence and gangs seeking retribution for stuff that they would never have gotten away with under the king's rule. The two stories intertwine a little later, as the hard roll's lieutenants are gathered, after various interrogations and investigations, to discuss succession, because the syndicate wants succession so that they can keep the spoil under their boot, because it's quite profitable for them. This ends quite poorly due to the presence of one of the lieutenants who we met in the ganger storyline. He is a rabble-rouser. And he's not just a rabble-rouser, he's a fucking well-armed one. By which I mean... Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, I thought someone was about to say something and ask a question. I stopped, my bad. By which I mean, he's got auto guns. And I don't just mean, passed down through 8 generations to your Mars auto guns. I mean standard Militarum issue, brand spanking new off the press auto guns. And a lot of them. And suddenly, he then's like, you know what? We've been kept under the boot of these districts long enough. We're going to go attack the gates and we're going to take the gate, and we're not going to move, and we are going to stake our claim as an independent power once again. Not under the boot of these syndicates and these other districts like we were under the old guy. No, this is our time. And they're off to war. Meanwhile, he's back with the lieutenants, whipping them up, going, oh, by the way, watch this holovid. And they're blowing the gates up with vehicle bombs.
Nice.
It's car crash stuff, quite literally. And the Ganger storyline goes along the, do I go? Do I fight? Is it the right thing? Is it the right thing for me? Is it the right thing for my family? Is it the right thing for my friends? Because they're all in, all the friends are all in. But she's like, oh, I don't know. And so it's very difficult for her to make that decision. But she goes. In the end, she says to her mum, I'm alive, leaves a note under the door and goes. Because she doesn't want to be a burden to her mother anymore. In addition to, she just wants to escape because life in the Manufactorum is going to kill everybody. What then transpires, essentially, is the info broker runs away from the syndicate and everybody in order to do an independent investigation alongside one of the captains from the enforcers she met earlier. And they realise how well armed these spoilers are. And they have no right to be. The spoil doesn't work on brand new auto guns. They just don't exist. Like, having a gun is a status symbol. And having, crates upon crates of auto guns straight off the Militarum press raises suspicions. So working with this enforcer and with the tech priest, they track down where it's come from. And they call it the Arbites. And I have to say, I have never seen a book play the Arbites better. Because Farangantra, as I'm sure you're aware, doesn't have Space Marines. Like, why would they bother? So the final authority of imperial judgment on this world, it's not the planetary governor, it's not the ecclesiarchy, it's the Arbites. And their presence sends shits down everyone. Even the bosses of the syndicate who have been bossing people around, making threats, planning for the future, so that, oh, fuck. When the
judges are here.
When the arbitrator shows up, there's a problem. And they track it down to
I am the law.
Indeed. And they track it down to a guard regiment and go to, go over there. It's an armoured regiment. And at this point, the gates are in the hands of the spoilers, and there's a rebellion/secession whipped up in this guard regiment. How much of the regiment is gone disloyal versus is just following orders, we're not made clear, we don't care. And the arbitrators go with various people, and their Valkyrie gets shot out of the sky by a Lehman Russ. So
Wait, what?
The guard
Lehman Russ tank shot down a Valkyrie.
Well, maybe not a Lehman Russ, but they get shot down by AA guns or something. I forget. It's been like 3 weeks since I read the book. But the Arbites are now attacked, and holy shit, is there a shitstorm coming? So everyone goes in, the guard regiment are pacified, and the gangers are being told, you've got the gate, we just need to wait. The armour is coming, because they're expecting this guard regiment to turn up. And then they do. But in the hands of the loyalists. Boom, 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 boom. And the ganger's girlfriend gets blown up. Well, they were girlfriends for 5 minutes, pretty much. Rush of battle, kissing at the top of the ladder, all that shiz. And then Lehman Russ happens. So, no. And the story actually ends on a bit of a odd note, because nothing is resolved. There is no king of the spoil or queen of the spoil at the end of this. The ganger goes home to her mother and then just is like, I'm not even leaving a note this time, I'm just off. She just goes with vengeance on her mind. Info broker character just breaks. She goes back to what she's doing, and despite being kept clean by her enforcer friend, she goes into a drug-fueled haze at the end. She just can't cope. She's been blown up nearly 4 times. She's been involved in way stuff over her head. She's been threatened by the syndicate. Her enforcer friend got shot, admittedly without dying. And it leaves her in a horrible place as well. And the spoil situation is completely unresolved. The assassin's not caught. We don't really we get to meet the assassin. We learn her name and I've forgotten it. But she's not a spoiler. She's from outside the spoils. She seems quite high-born, quite noble. Probably got some chaos corruption kicking around because that's normally how these things go. But she's not caught. And at the end, she's still in about sabotaging fuel lines and blowing up transports and Valkyries that are going into where the guard regiment has been pacified and dealt with. So you end up in a position where the spoil is still a mess. There's no leader. No one knows what's going on. And I like that. I don't know why, because normally I hate unresolved threads and loose ends, especially when a novel that we know is not necessarily going to be part of a series. But I actually really like it here because, you know, it's been a few days since a guy who's been on the throne for 20 years, I remembered his name, it's Sorokin. I nearly called him Sokolov, but that's Dishonored. But Sorokin dies after decades of rule. What the happens now? Because there's no power structure beneath him. He's got lieutenant, sure, but no one with the smarts and the savvy to rule. So I'm actually okay with leaving it unresolved, and I want to go back. I want to pick up with what happened to the spoil next. Does this assassin keep in about and trying to screw things over? Is she looking to make a power play and grab the spoil or the surrounding districts for herself? We don't know, but I want to go back. And in many ways, that's better than just tie it all up in a bow, because I don't know the answer and I want to go back and find out what happened next. And I think that's actually, for me, for once, a compliment.
Well, I mean, yeah, sometimes like it sounds like the story is one that's like it's produced out of messiness. Like there's a lot of threads going around, so a story like that isn't going to have a clean ending. So even if they don't do any more, then it having a sort of non-ending, that sounds like I'm being rude, but, you know, not having like a real concrete, definite kind of thing is not necessarily a bad thing or out of keeping with how the rest of the story's gone. And it does, of course, leave it open to do more with those characters if people want to see it. So
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I'm very much hoping that they actually come back to the spoil at some point, because Varangantua is such a big, complicated, messy place with lots of different moving parts and very much room to do whatever story you want to tell. So why not leave the room to go back there instead of tying it all up, whether it's that author or just using it as a setting point for what comes next. If you just want to make Necromunda but without all the history and tying into Necromunda's lore, the spoil's where you start, because it's hive gangers and the like. So yeah, a very good book.
No, I keep meaning to try some of the like the Warhammer Crime. So just because it's like such a different approach to how a lot of the things work, and I think it you know, it's the thing that happens with most kind of big franchises, whether they be Warhammer or Star Wars or Star Trek or any of your big kind of sci-fi franchises. You have a whole universe to play with, yet they end up kind of playing with the same things over and over again.
Yep.
Yeah.
And things like the Warhammer Horror and Warhammer Crime sort of allow them to. It basically says, all right, do something different. You've got a whole universe to play in that has all these possibilities, and make something that isn't just a bold guy in power armor screaming at another bold guy, but has also got a tentacle.
Yeah, about right. So yeah, I was the same as you. I've been meaning to try Crime. Oh god, that sounded awful. Do not clip that. Do not fucking clip that.
Please clip that. Clip that. I'm going to go and do it myself. I need that. I need that for my own nefarious purposes.
You. It's going to be one of your fucking sub alerts now, isn't it? Or some stupid shit.
Yes. I quite like to try some crime, actually.
Fuck you.
FBI wants to know your location.
Anyway, I've been meaning to try reading some of the Warhammer Crime novels for a while. Ever since they were really announced, like Grim Repast and all of that. And actually, I'm really glad I did. I'm never going to read Warhammer Horror because horror and me are not friends. But I'm very much down for more of the crime novels in future. If the plot premise is good enough, I am definitely in.
Fair enough.
Yeah, no,
it's really like you'll do the crime novels and I'm doing the horror novels, so
yeah. And then I do the AOS, you do the big stuff in Siege of Terror, and then we just touch on 40k whenever we have the time.
And you also do Dawn of Fire, don't you? So
yeah, because you were put off by the first book and have just given up on Dawn of Fire, which is interesting because there was a comment saying the rest of them are actually really good. And if I'm honest, like of the 6 I've read, probably 4 of them have been good to very good, and 2 were mid. Like that's the worst. Like Avenging Sun is convoluted. Martyr's Tomb feels pointless. And just a chance to, fan service in some characters from another novel series. Iron Kingdom is divisive, depends on how much you like everyone dying for shock value. But the Wolf Time feels like a really good story to have told, much as I hate Space Wolves. And Gate of Bones is brilliant. And what's the other one? The one with the Star Child in it.
Throne of Light?
That's it. That was very good as well. So, yeah. 3 bangers, 1 controversial depending on your taste for shock value, and 2 mid. So, pretty good.
Oh, and also 1 going on pre-order tomorrow.
Oh, yes, that. Yes, I'll wait for the next paycheck and then I'll pick that up.
Trying to get it.
That's what ebooks are for.
I thought you said that's what eBay is for.
Well, ebooks in this case, but yes, also eBay.
It's funny that the Black Library site's still the only decent site that Games Workshop has now. Also, Warhammer Digital's still a thing.
Is it?
It's still weird to me.
Yeah, but Warhammer Plus is a thing. That surprises me.
Yeah, Warhammer Digital still around.
Huh.
I don't know if anyone actually uses it, but yeah, it's actually Warhammer Digital still has a site that's actually more usable than the current main store.
God,
it feels like one of those things where at some point someone's gonna check like an invoice and go, "Wait, are we still paying for this domain? Is that still being hosted? Do we still? Has anyone done anything? What?"
Well, do you remember how long? Speaking of, we were talking about Twitter earlier. Like how long the Voxcaster Twitter account was around before Warhammer Community?
6 months.
Was it only 6 months?
I'm thinking about. No, I'm thinking of the other one. Sorry,
there was an account
of the Voxcaster. I was thinking of the actual podcast they did on their YouTube channel. I was like,
God.
Actually 6 months long.
Oh God, yeah, the bloody podcast. I think, like, I know that our podcast format is a little boring because it's 3 dweebs talking behind a microphone on a blank image. But
hey, sometimes it's 4.
Sometimes it's 4, or sometimes it's 2. But I know that
sometimes it's like 20, and oh my God,
yeah, they're fun. But it's amazing, like, how unengaged that podcast was, given that literally it had loads of really cool and important people, because they did the thing that, what's the one thing that we always like to do when we get somebody big from Games Workshop on?
Complain.
Well, okay, apart from complain. Yes, we can complain about the odd thing, but apart from complaint, we want answers to questions that they have posed or set up, and we want the answers, and they're willing to give us them to a point. They're willing to give us some answers and a bit of clarification and extra depth. And it feels like sometimes when you're on a company show, like, you very much have to toe the line of, I can't tell you about that. That's something else. That's not something I can do. You have to read it to find out. But whereas when you're on a show like ours, the filters come off a little bit because, well, we have already read it. We want to talk to you about it. So, yeah, I don't know. It's one of them, talking to all the authors we've had, and I'd still love to get Phil Kelly, but I know it's never going to happen. Talking to all the authors we work with, and people like Duncan, people like Louise, and others who've worked with GW, that getting it, not just to look behind the curtain, because that's cool in and of itself. Yes, Peachy, of course. Looking behind the curtain, but also getting extra information about the setting and the thought processes of the product. Not just, getting, dirty goss about who did what behind the bike sheds. That's not what we care about. We're interested in the actual meat and potatoes of the story and what it means. And I feel like when you're on a show like that, where you've got to toe the line a bit more, you can't do that. And maybe that's me snarking a bit, saying, "Oh, look at us with our superior podcast, aren't we cool?" No, but it's just like, I don't know, if you're going to get people like that, on a show like that, you've got to be able to pose them something that you can't just get by reading a textbook interview.
I think part of the issue is just simply down to the basic sort of ethos behind what the shows are for. At the end of the day, things like this enthusiast entertainment stuff is there to entertain primarily. It's there to do that, and it's done by people that are enthused by the thing, and so there's this very particular vibe to it. Whereas something that's made by the company, it's advertising. That's what it is. It can be dressed up. It can still be entertaining. It can still. It's not like that means it's destined to always be nothing more than cynical an advert, because that's not the case. But the desire to make them comes from a slightly different place, and I think that does manifest into the final product in lots of interesting and often subtle ways. That means that quite often something that is made by the company that is making this stuff always has this like certain sanitized, sometimes bits a little cynical edge to it.
I think I agree with.
The enthusiast stuff can still have, don't get me wrong, but is less likely to just by its nature, and is more likely to contain people complaining for an hour solid as well. The swings and roundabouts.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, it's just interesting, like the fact that they tried the whole podcast. It's the same as like, and I've done this before, but I keep bringing it up. Lore Masters, the Warhammer Plus lore series. Holy fucking hell, is it boring? Like, genuinely, I've not signed up to Warhammer Plus, but someone who I know, who was in my Discord server, like, was playing the video to me whilst I was in a voice call with them. So they were just playing it in the background. And genuinely, they sounded more boring than my lore videos. And my lore videos have no sound apart from narration, and are just JPEGs with that narration over the top. And granted, I haven't made them for too long because I'm too busy and I haven't got the time to write the scripts and all this nonsense. But genuinely, I was like, I could do better. And that's not me being snarky, because I know I'm not the best person in the world, but just fucking production quality. Make your narrator sound actually interested in what they're narrating rather than just narrating. Because I think it was the Gazcool one, and I've made like 3 lore videos on Gazcool, so I know what I'm talking about with Gazcool. And it's just like, I'm bored. I've read this stuff for my own personal entertainment and then written 10,000 words about it over the space of 5 years, and I'm bored listening to it. How is that possible?
I wonder if there's an element of that stuff. Now, I just want to be clear, I've not listened to these videos, so, watch them is how you consume a video generally. But I've not watched them, so, take this for whatever it's worth. But I think you're probably also going to, again, with the origins of it, imposes different, forces upon the final work. So when you are a completely unconnected person just making lore videos, or even just because Codex Compliant's not a lore series, but we'll frequently talk about lore within the stuff because it's just the nature of the show.
Yeah.
But you're free to talk about your interpretations of it and how it interacts with older versions and newer versions and how there might be contradictions, and to try and weave a version of that is either inclusive or whatever, whereas any official one, there is an official line that will come down from up high saying this is what we're doing, this is exactly what we're saying, and it leaves less room for that playful interaction with the work, because you're not, it's not interacting with the work, it is simply reciting it to you.
And that again, is these things, absolutely correct.
And they don't have to be like this. Again, everything I'm saying here, these things do not have to be one way or the other. Like, you can make a company can make lore videos of their own stuff and then be amazing. And YouTube is the example that very enthusiastic people can make incredibly boring videos. I know, I've made several. But but there are certain realities about how media is produced that inflicts pressures upon them, and I think you notice that a lot in official Games Workshop stuff that is imitating what the fandom has been doing for a long time. I think sometimes those differences in production reality, what is needed to be done to make a video and get it produced and released, and the checks and balances both of those have to go through, and the pressures the creators have on them are so different that the end results are never going to be the same. So,
No, I completely agree. It's the same, like, I don't know, like, for people who did, like, Astartes, and I'm sure they'll never discuss this, like, the difference in making Astartes as a fan versus making Astartes as an affiliate. Like, I'm not going to speculate because I don't know, wasn't there, no experience with it whatsoever, not done anything affiliated officially apart from, we've talked to some people who happen to work with Games Workshop. There's a difference. Like, we're not affiliates, but I can imagine that the creative process, like, when I write a lore video, I'll snark like hell. I'll just be like, yeah, this makes absolutely no sense, but for some reason this happened. And I'll just say that because I can. I can't say that if I'm writing it affiliated because, that's implying that the lore's got plot holes and makes no fucking sense.
Well, I think it's one of those things where I think, I've done a few things over the years where I've had to write something that is something that either we have been paid to do or we have, say, been sent something for free and, we're talking about it. And just the simple fact of those things does lightly affect how you talk about something because there is a little bit of pressure on you. Even though no one has told you that you have to pull your punches or anything, but you feel a little more well disposed to it, and that's present in whatever you do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And sometimes people go the complete opposite way, and when someone pays them, then they're much more harsh because they're very aware of that pressure, and they go over the top the other way. And God bless those people. I imagine they don't get a lot of emails back, but bless them. But this is the reality of creating media, whether it is on a super professional for companies level, or whether it is, and I don't want to say like what we've all done is like amateur level stuff because it's like literally jobs, but
for you guys, it is.
Yeah, but it is. The pressures on them are different because the difference between being self-employed and working for a company.
Yeah, and as someone who has deliberately before gone, I'm not taking Patreon money, I'm not this, I'm not that, has very much been me trying to make sure that I almost maintain both my independence and my quality. Like, I don't make videos for money because much as the money would be very nice, hello cost of living crisis, much as the money would be very nice, I'm not going to dispute it. I also know that then puts undue pressure on me to deliver and therefore potentially rush and botch it. Which I know is not something that is a pressure you guys necessarily have, but I'm definitely aware that your content is now being affected because it's tied to your salary, your additional income, and that affects how long you feel you can let it cook, how long you're willing to take before you go, actually, that'll do, or in some cases, that'll have to do. Get it out there.
Absolutely. If you sit there and you go, like, I know, Rem obviously produces more videos than there are hours in the day, and I have no idea how.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, our main series, Codex Compliant, is, like, released, okay, it's supposed to be once a month, but this last year is an exception. For understandable reasons. But it's really one big video once a month. And there is something where sometimes it's like, well, the video needs to come out this month because we need to make sure that we're getting paid this month. Like we've got enough views coming through to pay the bills. But then that's more, without wanting to get too deep into it, that's getting into the nature of art and capitalism and how one affects the other in entirely negative ways.
Let's not get too philosophical here. But yeah, it is just interesting, like how that changed from a rant about a Warhammer official podcast for 6 months into the nature of art itself for the space of 10 minutes.
Didn't I do this on the last podcast or something?
Oh, we do this every single time the three of us are in the same room. You and I particularly wax lyrical about something real deep shit around the nature of Warhammer and creatives every single time. Every single time, without fail. This is why we need Snipe, just to make Battenberg jokes and get us back on track.
No. I'll start talking about. They've been into Batman recently, so I'll make some reference to Dick Grayson's arse. He's got a very nice arse in the comics. It is a canonical point. So everyone should take a moment to appreciate Nightwing's arse.
All I will say about Nightwing is this. The way he died in the Injustice comics was absolutely hilarious. He literally just fell over and broke his neck.
All right.
Literally, he fell over and then broke his neck on a bit of stone, and I was knocked over in Arkham. That was it.
I have.
He died.
I have heard the Injustice storylines do a lot of characters dirty. So,
yeah, that's putting it mild. I mean, in fairness, the second game wasn't as bad, but the first game was really, really, really bad in terms of character assassination.
Who in particular got it? I've seen both games.
Everyone.
I didn't know one came out.
In fairness, I think the one who got done dirty the most was probably Wonder Woman. Got done dirty. Like, she literally became like an absolutely like evil bitch. Considering she's meant to be like, the third of the Trinity who's meant to represent like, love and compassion and all that, and she became literally like a tyrant essentially.
Cool.
Yep.
I've heard Damian Wayne gets it pretty rough as well in those
he
stories.
does.
It'd be interesting if trying to roughly toe the line of what if, obviously not maybe in comic form, but in a storyline, they did an Injustice style thing with Warhammer in terms of...
They did. It was called the Horus Heresy.
Well, okay, yeah, but the Horus Heresy... but the difference is, the Horus Heresy is not an alternate universe where all our heroes become the villains. Or, well, some of the heroes become the villains and they all turn on each other and everyone's on different sides and people start getting murdered. Like, if you had an alternate universe, particularly if you set it modern day rather than Heresy, because everyone and their mother has rewritten the Heresy by changing people's sides. Like, you've got a fucking 42-part series on it, Rem. So... I think I think the supercut of the Theoreticus Heresy is what? 4.5?
3 hours.
3 hours. So you've done it. I've done it for a theory video back like 8 years ago. So everyone and their mother's done it. But if you did it more recently and actually was like, what if the returning Gilliman was like not just, a calculating whatever he is, but an actual honest to God psychopath who did not care about the good of the Imperium and went rogue, established the 500 worlds as his own independent empire and made Imperium Secundus all over fucking again, just as an example. And
would it be Imperium Tertius this time round?
Or whatever, yeah. And suddenly do you remember that plot thread about the Dark Eldar being called in to fix the Golden Throne? What if that blossomed?
Yeah, that like...
Tom.
I was like, we're going to talk about that in the Dark City book, how that culminated. That went very tits up.
Indeed, but what if it actually blossomed and in desperation, the Comorite, the Imperium is that you can have XYZ people, these worlds or these systems to plunder as you see fit, but we need something right now. Or the Cicatrix Maledictum kicks off, and not only have you got Abaddon doing his thing, but maybe even, I know she wouldn't ever do it, but have Demon Magnus actually flip and go like, actually, you know what? This is, I want the Imperium to burn, but this is a bit far. And I know it's
centrist Magnus.
I'm not saying that it makes any sense, but considering what they've done with the Injustice storyline with some characters, turning Superman from a paragon of justice to a tin pot dictator, and etc. if you went really interesting with it, you could probably craft something really interesting as a plot thread or a storyline of a clearly like alternate universe or like a pocket dimension within the warp where the Chaos Gods recast the dies of fate just to see what would happen. And
that's actually a really cool idea. Like, yeah. I'm surprised they haven't done more stuff like that, considering
because
that you're
alternate universe stuff really gets fucky when it's the Warhammer universe because everything's connected by the warp. There's no such thing as an alternate universe.
Well, I mean, because like just like as a narrative exercise, because you're already dealing with a setting with so many contradictory sources of information anyway. Just not least because of how long it's been written for by hundreds of different people, but just the nature of the unreliable narrator thing that people refuse to understand correctly. But you know, like you could do like alternate universe takes and stuff. There could be what if books, like the what if Marvel stuff, where it's just like, oh hey, here is just what if this happened. It doesn't even have to be an alternate universe. It's just a what if, you know. And I think you could do cool stuff with that would allow you, and it would also allow them to sort of
throw a middle finger at their established canon because they don't care anymore.
Yeah, but also allow them to like pick up some threads that, you know, were kind of dropped 20 years ago and they never really did anything more with, but they're like, it doesn't really make sense to do anything with that now, but in a what if.
Yeah, because the big what if around the heresy is always, what if Erebus hadn't fucked it up and made Horus kill the Interrex? Like, that's obviously heresy era, but that's one of the big what ifs. And like, what if Dante and the Silent King actually went somewhere? What if that was a thing and the Silent King was like, we're back. I'm back because of the Tyranids and I've foreseen and I know of this extragalactic horror that is coming. We must stand together and I'm willing to leave you lot alone because we need to do this and actually forge a temporary alliance with Imperium Secundus, because Imperium Secundus, Imperium Noctis, sorry. Imperium Noctis is fucked. Gilliman's not there yet. Gilliman may never even be coming. They don't even know Gilliman's a f***ing thing. So, out of desperation, with the Tyranids on the horizon and Baal in pieces, why not? It's a fun thought experiment.
Yeah,
all he's talking about alternate universes and that, I'm just reminded about the time when Stan Lee wrote Batman story. With the absolute worst Batman costume ever. It was literally just a fursuit.
Oh, God. Was he writing a Batman comic or a Man-Bat comic?
A Batman comic.
I know. Sorry, that was an attempt at a joke and it was terrible.
I appreciated it.
Well, yeah, interesting.
No, it does seem like it's one of those things where, okay, Rem has just posted the outfit, and yes, that is a very bad Batman outfit, yes. That is, yes, way more Man-Bat than Batman, it has to be said. But yeah, it's one of those things where it just feels like kind of leaving money on the table, you know? Like, it's a thing that could be very easily done. And it's kind of a little strange that it's not something that they've tried to do. You can just do we've just done a short, here's just like a little anthology of stories, and they're all what ifs. You know, I think what if this, what if that? That'd be really easy to do. Just bang out a series of short stories like that. Like, I know writing is difficult, but you know.
Yeah, and I think the biggest reason, there's two reasons probably why they don't do it. One is, you know, it's probably quite hard to come up with something coherent whilst, you know, throwing middle fingers at the established canon, which I know they have to do sometimes, but I can imagine that's pretty difficult. And the other is, and I've said this before with other ideas and product ideas, is always the people who would buy that anthology are the hardest of the hardcore lore geeks like you and I, who would love that sort of stuff and eat that shit up. But realistically, little Timmy doesn't care. Little Timmy is not going to know the established canon and the importance of changing around this story because they don't know the story in the bloody first place. And most people who have a casual understanding of the lore because they read their codex or they read the rule book that one time because they were bored, those people don't understand, but that sounds really, really rude. They don't necessarily see the appeal of those stories because their breadth of understanding or their depth of understanding is not something they've read up about because it's not something that's interested them. So why would, most people who probably watched Marvel's What If were probably diehard MCU fans rather than casuals who'd watched the Avengers movies and that's it, or watched the first two Iron Mans and then sort of missed out on Captain America 4 or whatever the hell we're up to. It's for the people who really dig the lore shit. And in terms of Black Library's buyer base and the driving profit, I don't know if there's a big enough base there that would really go for it. I don't know.
Well, I'd put kind of two things. Just one, they don't have to be that deep. The actual what ifs. The Marvel ones generally aren't actually that deep.
It was a complete universe destruction.
Yeah, but it's just what if this one character was this instead? It's not actually that deep in terms of lore.
Yeah,
depth.
Okay, fair.
It's quite surface level stuff, and you can just do that. And also, I would point out that the Black Library has managed to sustain the Horus Heresy series, which might be the most impenetrable thing that has ever been written, considering that to read the latest books, there is the pressure to read 50 fucking books.
And take your point. Fair enough. I think I've probably been a little rude there because I'm hungry, tired, and annoyed. I don't know.
What if the Siege of Terror was written by Ian Watson?
Fuck off.
I legit... Okay, here's actually a legit thing. I think it would be really fun to do a one-off... if you're going to do a short story of what ifs, to do a what if that's basically what if Warhammer never changed from those early novels. So it had that sort of completely different tone. And to have a writer who isn't Ian Watson and with his proclivities...
they did that. It's called The Infinite and the Divine.
I guess I need to read The Infinite and the Divine then.
Because it's a comedic jaunt between two immortal killbots who just want to murder each other, and it's hilarious.
I meant more there's the texture of really old 40k that has a
hint of 90s pulp sci-fi.
Yeah, there's this thing where it's got a bit more joy of playing around with things because the setting is not as established. So they can just say some shit and it's fine.
So look at how absolutely horrible it is. It's great.
Yeah, I give Ian Watson a lot of shit because
he deserves it.
He deserves it, and my God, he should never write women for any reason ever.
Oh God, no.
But I do think he is. I do genuinely give him credit for writing Imperial characters who are as horrible as Imperial characters should be.
I think it was actually you who said something to this effect, Ian Watson understands the grimdark of 40k better than most.
Yes, he understood the brief better than most people who write stuff for 40k these days do. At least obviously the modern setting is different to that original setting, but there is no point when you are reading Inquisitor when you sit there and go, these guys are heroes. There's no point. You're like, this is just a rampaging bunch of space arseholes wandering around the universe doing shit things. Which, I don't know, that feels like what Inquisitors kind of are.
Yeah, that's true.
And I feel like on some level that is more truthful to what 40k was trying to be. It's got muddled over the years because of it being a big franchise and, wanting to have characters that people relate to and its responsibility as to it's complicated, okay?
Oh, yeah. And, yeah, I'd be interested just to see, obviously, I think the comments are going to be very much we'd love a what if or a different look because that's the audience we've cultivated. That's the sort of people who would dedicate 2 hours of their life to listening to three dweebs and looking at a JPEG. Genuinely, that's what this show is. It's three dweebs talking over a JPEG. Sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's 4, sometimes it's 20, but it's usually 3.
Hey, sorry, it's a PNG, I have you know.
Oh, fuck you. But yes, but you know what I mean, though. the audience we have is very much the type that would absolutely go for that kind of thing, because that's the kind of people we are, and that's naturally the kind of people that will listen to what we do. So I don't know. It's one of those I'd normally just put into the comments. I don't know if I'd get a fair representative take if I did, of just saying, comments, what do you think? Because I know the comments are people like us. And so
you are right, yeah. We are a very particular audience, and our desires are going to be of a particular type, and a lot of the people listening are also going to have that.
Yeah.
So you are right.
Yeah, but I will say, and this is something that I think is, I don't know how I put this, like, Warhammer has done really well at managing to make all of its audiences feel heard and respected.
As a Rebel Grot player, I would like to humbly disagree, but I understand your point.
Like the idea, like the hardcore gaming people have been given loads in like tournaments, organised play, proper competitive events.
Way too fucking much, in my opinion.
But the people like the lore geeks like us are still given lots of different books, lots of different stories in different settings, telling new tales, retelling old tales, lots of character work, comedies, horror, crime, drama, like.
Just nothing in the actual codices themselves.
Point taken. There was a question about that, which we haven't mentioned, about like what the fuck is up with the codices? How do we fix them? But separate problem for another day. But then you've got the casuals, like the game's been made easier for you, or a bit more accessible. Maybe not easier, but certainly a lot more accessible in terms of how you play it, pick it up. Hobbyists have got better and better models to work with. Like whatever branch of the hobby interests you, you are still catered to. And even like the old hands are being given squats, they're being given Sisters of Battle back, Fantasies back, Heresies back properly, Epics back, sort of. So I feel like they've done really well at keeping the church very broad. And that's something that, like, Rem and I, as massive wrestling geeks, will know. Like, leaving a core of your audience behind because you're pushing this guy, or you're doing this style of storytelling now, or whatever. You just leave a chunk of your audience behind. And you see it with Fallout and Star Wars, of audiences just feeling like, this isn't for us anymore. And COD, like, I used to follow COD Zombies religiously. Nowadays, it's like, this isn't for me anymore because the storyline's just kind of a throwaway on an open world RPG zombie shooter. What do you fucking do? It's not the same as bloody Kino de Toten and all the other stuff that used to be. So it's managed to maintain a really broad church for a wide range of people, which is something that most franchises, especially as ones that change with the times, really have struggled to do. So I give Warhammer some credit that it's managed to move forward and keep every core of its audiences retained. It's lost people, but it's not lost a fan base. And if it has, it's usually found a way to bring them back.
I think it manages to irritate everyone on a relatively even footing, and I think that works out quite well.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But no, I know what you mean. There's a lot of aspects to it as a hobby. You know, there's people that never touch the models, but they love the books, or there's people that don't care for the lore and just paint the models. It's just the thing they do. Some people who play the game and don't interact with any part of it that isn't the game itself. You know, there's lots of different ways to interact with it, and it does mean it is impossible to please everyone.
Yeah, but everyone is usually pleased enough that they don't want to leave without anyone feeling like they're getting nothing. It's a really, really fine balance.
Yeah, it's one thing that, you know, it's an impossible balancing act. There's always something that's you know, going to be a little bit not as good, but they do. I will admit they do a relatively good job considering.
Yeah.
And on that note, given the time, we shall call it there, ladies and gentlemen. So, thank you very much to everyone who tuned in for this episode. We hope you enjoyed it. And thank you very much to Wib for joining us this episode. I can't talk, fuck it.
I really appreciate that impromptu scat session. That was really impressive. Thank you. I had a good time.
Now I need to listen to Scatman Crothers again now. You're welcome. Anyway, until next time, this has been Remleiz from 40k Theories.
This has been Neve from Tactica Imperialis.
I'm Wib.
That's Wib. Yep.
That's me.
And we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.